So I think we can start. Uh, so very warm welcome to everybody who's joined us today on this very important subject that we'll be covering today. So we are having this online workshop and webinar on the subject of stress to success and decoding stress to achieve work-life balance. So again, welcoming everybody who's joined us today, this evening on a working day. Thank you for being with us and sparing the next 1 hour and being with us. So just to introduce myself, I'm Pranav Poddar. I am one of the directors of Synergy Environics. And with me today, the panelist and the speaker for today's webinar is Mr. Ajay Poddar, who's the founder and managing director of Environics. So again, from both our side, very warm welcome to all of you. So welcoming Mr. Ajay Poddar as well. So, we'll start right away. I think we've got a fair amount of people already joined in. I hope in the next 2 minutes, many more people will join. But I think we can start, sir, and let me share my screen also so that, we can start with the subject right away. So as you all have registered for this workshop, which is Stress to Success, hopefully, you will have many takeaways. Stress is a subject which is of paramount importance. All of us do feel that we are stressed out most of the time during the day and night, whether it's at home or it's at our workplace. But we'll decode this. We'll talk about the science of stress and how can you convert stress into success. So, what we will cover, I'll just quickly cover in the next slide, and then I'll hand it over to Mr. Ajay Poddar. So we'll talk about the science of stress, what happens, what are the different types of stress, different stages of stress, and then what happens when we are in chronic stress. So we'll also tell you about the different stages of stress. What is the function or correlation between the brain and the stress, and what is adrenal fatigue? We'll also learn about the physiological tools to manage stress. When we talk about stress management, how do you do it? And why is stress important as well? How does stress make us better? Stress can also be powerful and useful. So we'll talk about that as well. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Ajay Poddar for covering today's session. And so welcome, sir, and over to you.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for being here on our invitation. And I hope this will be useful and an interactive session. We straight away dive into the thing of while we can share this presentation with all of you who are attending so that you can go into it in more detail on your own, on the technicalities and things like that. I will be talking about some aspects of the technicalities or what happens, but the rest I'll leave it to you for your reading later. But I will also be talking about at a behavioral level and at a psychological level, how do we deal? Now, the person who was the stress master was Hans Sale, 1936. He was supposed to be the father of stress research. And he defined it as the non-specific general response of the body to any demand for change. Now, we know that we don't say that stress hamare paas aa jao. We don't invite stress. Of course, so stress happens. And sometimes, of course, by our behavioral patterns, we invite stress also. We'll go into that later. Sometimes it is perceived that stress is distress, but it is not distress really, because distress is a condition which we can be permanently or be there for a long time. Whereas stress can come and go if we actually look at it in that way. So short bursts of stress, like when we are running or when we are doing something, when we want to be focused on something, can also be good for our body. It's also our survival mechanism. So sometimes when you are nearing, you have to brake suddenly when you are driving in a car and the car in front stops suddenly. So that is the thing where your body's responds to a certain situation and an environmental threat, internal or external. And starting from the old times, you used to be having a situation where you had to fight for your food, you had to fight for survival. If you are living in a jungle, suddenly your stress was that, okay, if a lion comes, I have to fight the lion or I have to run away. Now, of course, in the modern lexicon, we also find that we get stressed about the fact that nobody sent us a WhatsApp for 15 minutes. I mean, that can be a subject of stress, that nobody is remembering me. What is the thing? What's happening? We can be stressed about the fact that, a colleague has said something and we don't like that. So there are many things. But whenever we have stress, what is it that happens? So all of you would have noticed that our heartbeat becomes faster, breathing becomes a little short or a little shallow, our muscles tense, because we require that full attention to deal with that matter. So, and we don't see things around, we have a kind of a tunnel vision because we have to focus on what is it that we have to deal with and what is happening. And then there are these important things, cortisol and adrenal. So our cortisol, which is required, that the cortisol is a hormone which is released to deal with stress. And cortisol, what it does is it blocks all the other secretions. So the other things that we need in the body, that is a kind of put on hold. So our digestion is put on hold. What happens is that we have these sympathetic and parasympathetic systems in our body. So, like we said, your pupils dilate, you have an increase in heartbeat, your airways, they become a little more shallow. Your secrete, you might sweat a little more. You generate more glucose. Digestive system goes on hold. So many things happen. The vagina contracts, the urinary system can get a little more this thing. And so you have the parasympathetic, which is also, which is the balancing factor. So for our body to function properly, we require a balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic things. So whenever we have stress, because the other things are put on hold, we need the parasympathetic. After, if we want to de-stress, we have to go to the parasympathetic and balance it with that so that that gets restored. So there are three types of stresses, as we know. One is the acute, which is the most common form. It's a short-term stress which comes in, it's triggered by something. Maybe you're late for work. Maybe, as I said, you might be involved in an accident or a traffic jam or whatever. And it can actually go away once that episode is, once that situation is gone. Then again, we talk about an episode where, you have a lot of nervous energy. You don't like to sit quiet or idle. You want to do always something. You want to feel that you are busy. So this is a little more frequent. And so this is something which we have to, again, be aware of, that whatever we are getting stressed about, is it a necessary part of our being or not being? The biggest problem is, Pranav, just go back to the other one. The chronic stress is what you have all the time. You are thinking about the same thing again and again, year after year. If you've not got a promotion, you are thinking about that. If you not have a good relationship with somebody, it's bothering you. You feel that you don't have any money. You are in an unhealthy relationship and you don't know how to deal with it or how to get out of it. Or you're doing a job which you don't like. So every day you say, what am I doing and what is it that's happening to us? So these are the chronic stress is what leads to a physical distress, which can cause certain heart conditions. And this is what we have to beware of. So we'll go now a little, delve a little further into the chronic sex part of it.
Can everybody hear us properly? I saw a comment which said that you're not able to get the audio. So if you can just put a thumbs up, if one or two of you can put a thumbs up, if you can hear us properly. All right.
Oh, great.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. So Mr. Rocky, if you can check the audio at your end, I think most of the people can hear us. I think you can check your settings at your end.
Yeah. So this is the connection that when you have lower stress, medium stress, and high stress, how does it affect your performance? So sometimes when we say ki this guy is too relaxed, and that we can sometimes liken to lethargy also, and like lack of motivation and things like that. So this is the short-term stress is good. As I said, mid-term stress is actually about raising your threshold to stress, which when your performance becomes optimal. So how do we raise our threshold to stress? There are a couple of things which we can do. One is that every hour when we are working or doing anything, just take out a minute and close your eyes and do some deep breathing. The second thing is we can do some short-term breathing also, that we release 30, 40 short breaths like that. So this is called Wim Hof breathing. This is also, Hof was a person who was in extreme cold. He was near an iceberg and he had to survive. So when he did the short breathing, it actually heated up the body and made the circulation go better. And this is something which we do in Bhastrika Pranayam also. So this actually raises your threshold. Even if we do it once or twice a day, it's very good. Then sometimes what happens is, we were talking about the tunnel vision, and we were saying that when we are stressed, then we just see one thing. So it's a very good thing is to look around. So people say that when you go out into the open, when you look at the greenery, when you look at things around, you might be still, but suppose you are in a room, but you can't see a view. You don't have a view, you don't have a garden, or you don't have something. But even when I was talking about closing the eyes or something, when you just visualize, you can visualize that you can see a whole lot of other things. That also helps. Now, what are the kind of things by which we will notice that we have stress? Now, sometimes you get up at night, 2 a.m. at night, or you can't sleep. You're thinking about the same thing and you can't get sleep, or you'll get up and you are awake, and then you get sleep. You actually start feeling sleepy at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock when it's time to be awake. So actually, our cortisol should be at its best at that time, but the reverse happens. And some of the symptoms when people don't get sleep at the right time is sleep apnea and sinus. So with sleep apnea, we know that we don't get enough oxygen. We are not able to get enough oxygen inside us. And with sinus also, pretty much the same thing happens. When you have a lot of stress, then your heart rate, if you have higher, it can cause inflammation. High blood pressure and heart rate can cause inflammation in the artery, and that can create a problem. So then your immune system. So whenever we are stressed, as I said, cortisol turns off the immune system. It turns off all the other things. And the things which fight our T cells, the T cells multiply. These are natural killer cells. They also cause cancer. And we become more susceptible to bacteria, virus, fungal attacks. So normally we'll see that when something major happens, when there is a death, when there is something else that is happening, we find that they tend to get some disease or the other because for a prolonged period of time, we've been through a lot of stress. So, as we said, there can be a memory loss also, and brain fog. We can't focus. We just get, as I said, get thinking about one or two things all the time. Next, please, Pranav. Now, when we have stress, like I said, all your other mineral secretions are stopped. So potassium is very important. It's a physiological relaxant. There's thiamine, B1, vitamin B1. It is a stress removing vitamin and it induces calmness. Potassium also is lost, shows elevated BP and arrhythmia. Sodium goes up. We know that high sodium is not good. And we have a craving for salty food, which again make the sodium go up. So these are some of the manifestations. You have high alkalinity. We know that alkaline body pH should be alkaline, but very high alkalinity is also not good because it tightens your muscles. You get muscle cramps, and the absorption of electrolytes in our body, which is good for us, reduces. We also lose acidity. Now, acidity is also important. Certain amount of acidity in the system is important for digestion. And when your digestion gets affected, then you could also develop ulcers. Now, when you get stressed, what happens is that you also tend to lose proteins and ketones because they turn into sugar. They release the stored glucose. And when that happens, then you also lose muscle and on the thighs, on the legs. And you might gain fat in the midsection because that's where it gets stored. The joints and the skin also gets affected, and you get aged, your muscles contract, and it also destroys bones. And many people find that the menopause symptoms are similar. So with menopause also we find that your bones also get affected and things like that. Kidney is also affected. It filters less and it's not able to retain certain minerals, potassium, magnesium, but retains fluid. And vitamin D, which most of us, when we get tested, we find that we are deficient in vitamin D, and we find that actually vitamin D is required to make cortisol. But it curbs the inflammation in our body, and it helps our autoimmune diseases. Autoimmunity, it improves. And but we find that most of us are, one of the very good ways of restoring vitamin D is being in sunlight 1.5 hours after sunrise or 1.5 hours before sunset. And this also, sunshine is a magic drug because it also helps improve our serotonin levels, which is our happiness index. And it gets absorbed through the skin, and it helps that as well. And obviously, if you are happier, you'll be less stressed. Then it can cause gallstones. So it can cause various diseases without our knowing what is happening to us really. And, it also affects our gut health. Now, gut health is also, which we may not know, also it secretes, good gut secretes serotonin. So that is again our happiness index. And of course, good gut health is required for digestion. So brain, because the blood supply and the oxygen to the brain is reduced, it can also induce certain strokes and create clots.
So I see a couple of people who've raised their hand. So if anybody has a specific question, I would request you to put it in the chat box. and then we'll take it up during the end of the webinar. Or if you wish to speak something, then please put it again in the chat box, and I'll allow you to speak during this. So please put your questions in the chat box as and when you have anything.
Thank you. So we've talked about various vitamins being affected. Now, very quickly, there are some of the things which can help with these vitamins as far as food is concerned. So people who are vegetarian, there are some things which like omega and all that, which will help. But if we can have nutritional yeast that is available as a supplement. Vitamin D is, of course, as I told you about sun rays. You can also eat mushrooms, which is good for vitamin D. Then K2 you can get from animal fats and leafy vegetables, dark green leafy vegetables. Magnesium, potassium, again, nuts, seeds, whole grains, wheat germ, wheat and oat bran. So you can grow all that. That can be very easily. Then, of course, omega-3, as I mentioned, then avocado, chia seed, pumpkin. Then healthy fats. Fats are also very important for the body. So you can get it through, again, so not in balance, if you eat lots of vegetables, nuts and seeds, avocado, and wheat germs, and some fermented food for probiotics, it can be very healthy. And these build up, these are the building blocks which help our digestion as well as our ability to deal with stress. Ashwagandha is a very calming thing and a very good thing for relaxation. And we can... So how do we measure stress? We all say that, yes, we are stressed or we are not stressed. But how do we know whether we are stressed or not? So one immediate measure of stress is the heart rate variability. So the higher the heart rate variability, the better is your ability to deal with stress. It's like you have something which is rigid, which you can't bend, and something which is flexible. So we require that flexibility in our heart rate to deal with stress. Otherwise, the heart gets strained. So low HRV is this flight and flight where you will get exhausted. So that is okay for a short time. And otherwise, it affects our cognitive levels. I talked about flexibility or adaptability. And the high HRV happens when you are in the rest and digest mode. So there, on our smartwatches, there are HRV is shown. There is something called a Holter test, which they used to do earlier, which used to be hitched on to you for 24 hours, and they measured all that. But now, of course, it can be measured instantly. So this is one immediate measure of stress. Now, what are the techniques? We've talked about stress, what it does to us, but what are the techniques to beat stress? How do we deal with stress? So the best way is just to breathe, and just to breathe slowly and normally. So normally what happens is when you breathe, when you are stressed or otherwise, even normally, most of our breathing is shallow, which we were taught in NCC, where we were taught to breathe from the chest. But actually, the best way to breathe is to breathe through the diaphragm. But before that, I will come to that slide. Normally, if you are breathing fast, you are breathing about 16 to 18 times in a minute. Now, we need to slow down, because the slower the breath, the more is the oxygen retention in the system and supply to the brain. So there is this thing called box breathing, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, or if you are not timing it with a watch, you count 4 slowly and breathe in. Then you hold your breath for 4 seconds. Then you breathe out for a count of 4 or 4 seconds. And then again, you hold your breath. So actually what is happening is that you are doing 8 you are doing in 16 seconds, you are doing 2 breaths, so to say, breathing in and breathe out. So you could end up doing about 6 to 8 breaths in a minute, which actually increases the oxygen supply to 75%. Whereas when you're breathing 16 times in a minute, you could be doing it, the supply could be about 25%. So this is the kind of difference that breathing can make. The second is the way to breathe. So if you've seen a child breathing, how does a child breathe? The child breathes from the diaphragm, from the stomach. So you see the stomach going in and out. You don't see the chest expanding and contracting. And we have a muscle in the diaphragm, which mammals don't have, which animals don't have. And we should use this muscle. So a very good way to know whether we are breathing from the diaphragm is just to put our hand there and see that where our stomach is protruding or coming out when we are breathing in and going in when we are breathing out. And of course, in a lot of pranayams, we show that the slower you exhale, means if you can inhale a little faster and exhale a little slower, it will relax you even more. So this is the breathing thing. You might have found that when children are crying, what do? They will do this, take a breath, then they'll sniff like that, and then they will let out a big sigh. So that is their normal way of dealing with a certain kind of a stressful situation, which happens normally to them because they are more in touch with their bodies. So you are doing a more audible exhalation. Now, a very important thing for our body, which is the vagus nerve. I don't know if many of you have heard about it, but it goes from the back of our skull and touches our jaws. It touches many of the organs. So it touches the lungs, it touches the heart, it goes into our digestive system. And this is a complete stress buster. So many of you would be remembering this movie called Three Idiots. And what did the person do? Amir Khan, he would say, all is well, all is well. So when you touch like this, because the vagus nerve in this region is almost at the tip of your skin. So when you do this, you are activating the vagus nerve. When you smile, then your jaws activate, your jaws also get activated, and that is where the vagus nerve is also passing through. So there are many parts of the body or in your throat. So when you are humming, if you are doing riyaz while you are doing music, or you are just doing a humming sound, so you can do the like they teach you in yoga also, you do Brahmari. So whenever you do this humming sound, you close your mouth and you try to hum, it activates the vagus nerve. And this also secretes serotonin. Now, the other thing is very important, social connection. Now, we are taught now to be socially correct. You have to greet somebody moderately. We don't hug people that easily. We don't laugh that easily. So we tend to stay within ourselves. We spend time on our system for long periods of time. Instead of picking up the phone or talking to somebody, we WhatsApp more. So we get into a social isolation mode for a long, and this is creating a certain chemical which causes aggression, makes us paranoid that everybody is after us, anxious, and a little fearful. So it has been found with research over the years that people who are this is research which was done over almost 15, 20 years, that people who are more social, people who are doing things for helping others, who are moving out into society and creating connections with people, tend to live much longer and are much more stress-free than people who are not. Now, here are some of the simple tips. So you can actually press this part. It shifts your stress and anxiety. It actually directly activates your nervous system or calms your nervous system. And you can put this for about 30 seconds or 1 minute. You can leave or you can massage it lightly, or whatever it is. There is a point in the chest. This is in the center. So this is an acupressure. When you feel very stressed and things like that, just press this point as you see in the diagram, or I'll show you. Just press this point here. And this is also a great way to relax. We know that in a lot of people, we put this, ladies put the bindi here. So this is our third eye. And because when you put a bindi or when you put a tika, there is some external thing which is creating a small acupressure there. And this can definitely help insomnia, anxiety. You would have heard of people putting chandan on their foreheads, which is a very cooling and calming thing. So this can reduce nasal congestion. And of course, we know that just going, instead of going on a treadmill or to the gym, if you go out into nature, go out for a walk, it's fantastic because you see the view around, you see greenery, you hear sounds, you hear birds, and it's great. Now, the three things lifestyle which we can which really help us to be healthy is sleep. So while depending on your metabolism, some people require less sleep, some people require more sleep. But anywhere between 6 to 8 hours, you have to find your sweet spot. And people who go, a lot of professionals who work long hours and who may be otherwise very fit also, you've heard of them not being healthy and suddenly things happening to them because they are overstraining themselves. Of course, work-life balance and any activity. When you are stressed, like we said, your muscles become tense, and also if you just move your body a little bit. And whatever time you exercise, whether you exercise for half an hour or 1 hour, but try to do that every day. It's not that once in 7 days you'll just hit the gym for 2 hours and say, I've got my dose. Just go back, Pranav. Other things are very important. The devices, as I've talked about, to get proper sleep, at least switch off your devices 30 to 60 minutes before sleeping. If you can't manage 60 minutes, at least 30 minutes, please. Office work, TV, television. Many people actually, I found, telling us that we can't sleep before unless we watch television. And while we are watching television, we sleep. But if you sleep while you're watching television, it's because your mind and body gets fatigued. It's not getting rest. We need to be preparing for sleep like we prepare for everything. We prepare to go for a walk. We have a bath. We do our ablutions. We dress up. Similarly, we have to prepare for sleep. And of course, healthy food. We've talked about that well. Hydrate yourself well. It's important to drink water. We all hear that we should drink 2 liters of water. We should drink 3 liters of water. But it's important to know how to drink water, which means that our body is capable of absorbing about 120 to 150 milliliters of water per hour, per waking hour. So we should, if we are going to drink 1 liter suddenly, it is actually going away to wash away the minerals, and it's going to become difficult for our kidney to handle that. So that is important, that how do you drink water? You have to sip water. You don't have to gulp water. Avoid high sugar, of course. Sugar is chemical, but we can eat natural things like gur and all. It's much better. And sugar or any kind of high acidic intent causes inflammation. And of course, we've talked about the breathing and things like that. Another very useful thing is what is called the Jacobson exercise. So Jacobson exercise is when you, from head to toe, you tense every part of the body as much as you can. and then leave it, and then relax. So then again you tense it and you relax. So then when you get tense or when you get stressed, this comes that, yes, after that, relaxation follows. Massage is very good. Acupressure is very good. If some of you can get some acupressure points done, because it releases certain toxins which are stored in the body and things like that. And massages, of course, remove the stress, also gets stored in your muscles, even when you don't have stress. So like we say, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it, like Love Holtz has said. And once you identify what are the stressors, now suppose there are two ways, like sometimes we call people as energy thieves. So what do? When they come, they induce certain reactions in us. And actually they steal away the energies from us because they are short of energies. So what we can say is that if you go to near, like we talked about the fight or flight. So if you are with people who cause certain unpleasant reactions in you, you have to try and see how you can minimize interaction. If you can't minimize interaction, then what do? Like you do with a child. You say, okay, if the child has done something, he said he is not aware. So that's why he's doing it. Otherwise, you take it as personally. Somebody gives you a gali, gada. You say, acha, yaar, isne gada bol diya. That is because you believe that you are a gada. Because he said, if you don't believe that, and you say he doesn't know what he's saying or she's saying, or maybe they've had a bad day, then it won't affect you the same way. Of course, we've talked about food, toxins, and food. You all know what is nutritious food and what is not. And of course, family, as I said, they can be stressors or energy thieves. Workload. Now, sometimes we find money matters. We feel insecure. We said we want more money, but we don't know what is to be happy with what we have, or work constructively towards, not look at peer pressure that somebody owns a Mercedes, somebody does this thing. So a lot of time our stress is caused by peer behavior or peer pressure. And of course, social media and views of other people, what other people think of us. And another thing where we are also doing a lot of work is electrosmog. So why do we call it electrosmog? Because we are surrounded by smarter devices. Our homes and our workplaces are like war zones. We have so many communication devices or Wi-Fi devices, which actually cause damage to the cellular communication of our body. Our body communicates with one another. And we find that when we have these devices around, their language of communication, their waveforms are different from our body waveforms, and they cause interference. So you would have heard on a flight that switch off your cell phone as it's likely to interfere with communication system of the aircraft. Now, aircraft communication system is 200 times stronger than our cellular communication. So it follows to reason that if it can potentially disturb that, isn't it disturbing? And a lot of clinical trials we've done and experiments we have done prove this more than amply. The other is your built environment. So WHO in 1983 and 86 identified a phenomena called sick building syndrome, where they said 30% they did it for commercial buildings, the 30% of your built environment is not fit for human habitation. And that time, Wi-Fi did not exist in 83 or 86. But there were other things like asbestos or this thing. Okay. So can we move on? I think taking a lot of time. We'd like to keep more time for questions and answers. So this is a typical thing which we talked about, geostress. These are emissions from the Earth's surface. And this is something which we identify and correct in buildings. We've done about 200 million square feet of built up area in homes, offices. This has been researched over the years. Where in modern research, it's from 40s onwards, but our ancients knew about it earlier, and they had various ways which have not been very well documented. But a lot of our temples, forts, churches, and many habitats have been built with this thing. So digital, as I told you, we can carry on. These are the various digital devices we are talking about. Yeah, please move on, Pranav. This is like what our homes. So you have a smart TV, you have a router, you will have certain other, you have might have an Alexa, and you would have various other things. You may have a tower nearby. And this is what our desk looks like. It's like a war zone. And this is what we are surrounded by. And very invisibly, like Chanakya said, कि अज्ञात शत्रु से बचो, the invisible enemy. So that is what COVID showed us, because we couldn't see a COVID germ. We didn't know that COVID was coming to us. So to deal with success in balance, what we say is there are many things out of our control. We can't deal with them. The past we can't change. We can't change the actions of others, opinions of others, what happens, others, how others take care. So can we take care of what we can deal with? Our own thoughts of action. Write a gratitude journal. That is very good way. We think of all the bad things that had happened to us. If in a day we can write 3 things before we go to sleep of what we have been thankful about, that will do wonders for us. So these are things that you can do. And then there are some other things which Pranav can tell you about, a little bit about our work, and then we can open it to questions. So that's all I wanted to share now, and we can now, Pranav, can you just very briefly take?
Yeah, so thank you, sir. So at Environics, of course, we've been working in this area for many, many years. And there have been a lot of solutions which we have developed primarily for this reason that, how do we make people healthier? How do we make people less stressed in their living and working environment? So just a bit, we have something called as a wellness at home. We have something called as a wellness at work. And as we said that, we deal with natural emissions from the earth, which are geostresses. So we call this environmental well-being. We can take care of these emissions in your home, in your working spaces, offices, plants, factories, and completely, take care of it so that your employees are healthier, your processes are much more productive. Digital well-being we've covered, that, we take care of emissions, electromagnetic emissions from all your smart devices. So we have a lot of products that we have patented, developed, medically tested over the last few years in collaboration with leading institutions like AIIMS, Apollo Hospital, Max, Medanta. Again, dealing with, how do you manage stress through some of these solutions. We also have a unique personal well-being program. It's a software and a hardware where in 5 minutes you can identify 30 plus parameters of the body, including some of the emotional and mental parameters like the serotonin levels, dopamine levels. So it's a good, very short, quick way where you can find out where you are and what is needed to really improve those parameters. So we've been doing this for corporates. We've done this work with more than 400 plus organizations, close to 3,000 plus establishments done, more than, as we said, impacted the lives of 20 million people till date, through some of our services and products. So these are just some of the products that we have. EnviroChip is something that you can fix on your phone like this. If you see a black round chip on my phone, so you can have this for your phones, laptops, Wi-Fi routers, iPads, smart TVs. We have something called as an EnviroGlobe, which is an electro smog purifier. You can have it in your bedroom, living room, conference rooms. Again, it takes care of all electromagnetic emissions within a 300 square feet area. It could be from a mobile transmission tower or a server room or a Wi-Fi router. We have a new product called EnviroMat, which can be placed on top of the bed, under the mattress, And again, it's been tested with Ames and Apollo that it actually improves your sleep efficiency and takes care of, again, natural and man-made emissions. We have another product called EnviroCare, which is a wearable product. You can wear it in the form of a pendant or have it in the form of a card in your wallet or shirt pocket. Again, it's been tested to improve your immunity and sleep. So a lot of these things have been done over the last few years. And as we said, working not only in India, but many other countries outside, across airports, oil refineries, manufacturing plants, offices, homes. So this is something that we've been doing. And this is a good saying which says that what you can be measured can be improved, but what can be measured and managed can be improved exponentially. This is a quote by Carl Pearson. So thank you very much for listening to us and being a part of this. We would like to open it for Q&A. So if any of you have any questions, we would like you to put it in the chat box, and then we can answer that for you. We'll also run a short poll where if you would like to receive more information and offers about some of our solutions, we can. So I'll just launch a poll very quickly. So if you can answer this question, would you like to receive more information and offers on our solutions and how they can help you with dealing with stress, manage your stress? Whoever answers yes, we will be happy to send you more information tomorrow so that you can receive and engage with us more on that. So we'll just wait for another 5 seconds before I close this out. Very simple. Would you like to receive more information and offers? Yes or no? So maybe just another 5 seconds and I'll close this out. Okay, so I'm just ending this poll. And thank you very much. So any questions which anybody has, you can put it in the chat box and we'll take it up. Okay. Or if somebody is raising their hands, we can also allow them to speak.
Shivendra Bahadur Gupta has raised his hand.
Yeah. So Shivendraji, I'm just allowing you to speak, and I've put you on spotlight. So if you can ask your question. Mr. Shivendra, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Shivendraji, go ahead.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
So actually, I want to speak in Hindi because I have a fluency. Fluency नहीं है
Okay.
सर मेरे पास जी
बिल्कुल हिंदी में बात करिए।
सर मुझे ये सेशन जो था स्टार्टिंग से मैंने इन्वायरमेंट का एक छोटा सा ही प्रोडक्ट स्टार्टिंग में मैंने मंगवाया हुआ था अपने वाइफ के, उस पर मैंने लगवाया। लेकिन ये जो अभी मेरे साथ सर मेनली जो चल रहा है, स्ट्रेस फैक्टर हो या एंजाइटी फैक्टर हो, ये ओवरऑल स्टार्टिंग से ही हम हस्बैंड वाइफ के साथ में चल रहा था। अभी उन्होंने भी ज्वाइन किया है कि नहीं मुझे पता नहीं, क्योंकि चैट बोट वगैरह दिख नहीं रहा है मुझे, और मैंने उनको बताया तो था। तो मेन सर हम लोगों के लाइफ में जो इशू चल रहा है, तो ऐसा आगे का जो फ्यूचर अपकमिंग्स है वो कुछ सही से वो नहीं हो रहा है। ये सब चीज मैंने देखा तो वीडियो अभी जितना भी देखा, लेकिन शायद बीच में कुछ और भी काम मैं कर रहा था अपने दिमाग को बटा करके। तो फैक्टली सर मुझे ये समझ नहीं आ पा रहा है कि ये स्ट्रेस फैक्टर को हमको मैनेज करना है, तो कहीं ना कहीं आपने बताया तो था कि हाँ अपोजिट सेक्स भी जो होता है वैजन जो भी टेक्निकल वे पे बहुत अच्छा बताया था आपने। तो मैं वही चाह रहा हूँ सर कि हम दोनों पति पत्नी एक कैसे हो सके, और एक्चुअली अभी मुझे दिख नहीं रहा है, उनका स्क्रीन भी है करके, तो ये था सर।
देखिए तो बहुत बात है, बड़ी बात है, क्योंकि ये बहुत चीजों के कारण होता है। कुछ चीजों के बारे में हमने बातचीत की है, और एक और सवाल मैंने देखा था कि भाई जो चीज हमारे कंट्रोल के बाहर है वो चीज को हम कैसे ठीक करें। तो ये तो एक और विस्तार में इसमें चर्चा करनी पड़ेगी।
जी
इसमें कोई रेडी फिक्स तो मैं काउंसलर नहीं हूँ कि मैं
जी हाँ
बता
सर, नहीं
दूं
जी हाँ, नहीं नहीं सर, मतलब ये
हाँ
क्योंकि मैंने उसमें उनके मोबाइल पे जो लगाया हुआ था, तो वो उन्होंने फील तो किया था,
हाँ
बट वो
वो
उन्होंने अपने हिसाब से जो मानसिकता तय करी, तो ओवरऑल जो मुझे फील्ड पे अभी जो मुझे वर्क करना है, तो कहीं ना कहीं मुझे लगा कि
ये कुछ चीजें हैं
हाँ
जिनके
सर, जो टाइमली।
जो कि अनकॉन्शियस है, जिसके
हाँ
कारण
सर।
इरिटेबल हो जाते हैं।
जी हाँ, जी हाँ।
तो जो मोबाइल पे है वो तो जब पर आप रात को सो रहे हैं तो और बहुत चीजें हैं, जैसे हमारे एक इन्वायरो ग्लोब है, उसमें जो
जी हाँ।
भी वाईफाई का होता है, या जैसे
जी
मैट की बात, तो ये जो चीजें हैं जो अपने अपने के बाहर, अपने कंट्रोल के बाहर है और जो अपने
जी
को
हाँ।
दिखती नहीं है,
जी हाँ।
उसका। और दूसरी बात हमने ये कहा कि जो चीज हमारे कंट्रोल के बाहर है, अपने आलोचना करते हैं कि भाई ये ऐसा क्यों नहीं कर रहा है या क्यों नहीं
जी
कर रही है, खुद
जी
पे क्या बदलाव ला सकते हैं उसके
जी हाँ।
बारे में अगर अपने सोच सकते हैं तो शायद कुछ
जी
निदान हो सकता है
जी हाँ
इसका।
सर। जी हाँ सर, बाकी सर ये टाइमली जो अभी मैं खुद भी देखता हूँ कि रेडिएशन की वजह से सच में कई बार हम जैसे घर पे ही कुछ चीजों को बात करते हैं, तो वो एक रेडिएशन की वजह से इतना ज्यादा क्रिएशन होता है, और कुछ और भी प्रोडक्ट मैंने
ठीक है।
देखे थे। जी हाँ।
तो आपका शुक्रिया।
जी
और
हाँ। जी हाँ सर,
इसमें
ओके सर, ओके।
से आप हमें
ओके जी।
को लिख सकते हैं,
ओके।
तो
हाँ
वो
जी हाँ सर।
बात
ओके सर।
करेंगे।
ओके सर।
Thank you,
थैंक
Joel.
धन्यवाद।
यू सर।
There's another question by Dr. Lavanya, which is similar, I guess. What is to be done when factors out of one's control are dominating other issues?
So that is what I mentioned to you about being energy thieves, either laughing it off or saying that that person doesn't. And then if there are things beyond our control, I said there's very little we can do about it. Because if we try to do things beyond our control, then we are trying to control more, which also causes stress. And many times we said we get stressed because of unnecessary things. So on a lighter note, I asked my father once that, why are you so stressed? So he told me that if so and so, so and so, so and so happens, then all my stress will be removed. And those things happened. So after 5 or 6 years, I asked him, Ki, now you are twice as stressed as you were earlier. So what happened? So he thought about it for a minute and he said, I'm stressed about the fact that you are not stressed. Ki, if sometimes we feel that we are worried, why is the other person not worried? So we can only take care of things which are within our control largely. It's not so easy to change ourselves also, so we can't really change the world so easily.
There's another question by Mr. Sanjay Narang. How do we get to know that cortisol is getting produced or released in our body?
So these are chemical reactions within our body. We have talked about some of the symptoms of stress, and it has been medically examined that cortisol is shuts out. So a lot of cortisol is released, and that shuts out all the other secretions. So when you know that these are the symptoms, your muscles are tensing or you are sitting in a tense manner, you may not be stressed about something, but there might be internal stress. Memories also cause stress. So when we notice these symptoms, you can't have a measure of how much is your cortisol level at X time, or because it's very dynamic, it keeps changing. So by looking at some of the symptoms and by saying that, okay, what are the other things which we can do to balance that? And looking at whether your eyes are dilating, whether your muscles are tensing, whether you're getting cramps. These are some of the things that you have to look at. But medically, it has been examined that when you have stress, this is what happens. This is what we are sharing with you, the research.
So great. So I don't see any more questions as of now. So if there's no further questions, then or we can wait.
Anyone wants to, any other observation that anyone wants to say I see some hand being raised.
No, these are just your thumbs up and
Thumbs up.
heart signs. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much. It's been lovely talking to all of you, and thank you for taking out time in the evening. And we'd love if some of you, as Pranav mentioned, are object is to touch 100 million lives. So some we are doing it directly through our work, some we are doing through these webinars. We are going to have some webinars in the future for other subjects. And if you want to suggest any subjects, put it in the chat box which you would like to us to share more with you about. And we have a YouTube channel also, where some of our past webinars and some of our past 1-minute videos, some quick fixes on what to do for various things like cramps and various other conditions are given, which can be quite useful. So we'll urge you to subscribe to that or look at that and give us your views and your feedback, and be wellness ambassadors to pass on the message to whoever you can. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
There are 2 more questions, Ari. Is there any other?
No, I think this is just
Okay.
thank you type of message.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.